Welcome, everybody, to What Do You Do with a BA in Theater, presented by Dallas Summer Musical's Education and Community Partnerships Department. My name is Seth Johnson, and I'll be your host for this series. We have a fabulous guest today. Kristina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, I'm Kristina Miller. More, keep going.
Yeah.
I'm a scenic and costume designer working freelance right now. I have a BFA in theater from Tarleton State University, which is, it's gotten bigger, but a small university in Stephenville, Texas. And then I got my master's in fine arts from Michigan State University.
Awesome. So what was it like picking both of those universities? And I guess what was the thought process behind your undergrad, and then what made you choose grad school?
Yeah. So, honestly, undergrad was convenient. If I'm being really honest, like coming out of high school, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. Well, I think I knew that I wanted to pursue theater, but I was kind of afraid to, right? Like, what am I going to do with a degree? What do I do with a BA in theater?
Yeah.
As a high school senior, I was like, this might not be a great career path. Is this really a thing that people do professionally? And so I kind of chose a university pretty close to home and went in just sort of looking to hopefully find what it was that I wanted to do, and I couldn't get out of the theater, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I just finally committed and said, like, this is what I'm going to do. Theater's the way I want to go. It's what I'm going to pursue. And I got really lucky because my undergraduate education was sort of a generalist theater program. So I did acting, I did directing. We were all required to work in all the shops. I got to design a little bit, and I just sort of got to sort of dabble in all things theater and really figure out from there what my specific path would be. So by the time I got to the end, I knew that I wanted to continue on to grad school and further my education in theater.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, choosing a grad school was really sort of about looking for a program that had what I wanted, but also I actually ended up in Michigan State because I already knew people there. So I knew the head of design there. I had worked at the Ohio Light Opera with him. He was a designer. I was an intern. I made friends already there because a lot of people from that university would come to the opera. And so it was just sort of easy for me to step into that program because I already had contacts there. And when I went into that program, I made the choice to become a designer because they had a really strong design program, and that's where I went.
Yeah. Did you go right after undergraduate?
I took 1 year off.
Yeah.
Yes. I did. Yeah. Because once again, I was sort of hesitant to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I just really loved all aspects of theater, and I really hadn't fully decided, like, do I want to pursue acting and directing, or do I want to pursue design? And so I took off a year to kind of think about it and look at other program options outside of Michigan State, and ultimately I decided to just go ahead and go to Michigan State.
Yeah.
That's where my friends were. It's a terrible way to choose a university, but I got really lucky and it worked out for me.
Yeah, it's also a great university. So
yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I've made connections there that have lasted. I mean, I'm still getting jobs through the connections that I made in grad school years ago.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things about choosing a university or a college is what connections are you gonna come out with, and then how can you further get jobs and opportunities? And if you go to one of those larger name schools, you have more opportunities just through connections.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So career-wise, after grad school, what did you do?
After grad school, I had decided that I wanted to go ahead and go into education and teach at a university somewhere. So immediately after grad school, I was applying for jobs, looking for universities who were, looking for adjuncts or young professors. And, I didn't find that job right away. So I took some time and did odd jobs here and there. I worked as a costumer, not a costume designer, but a costumer for the Crystal Charity Ball here in Dallas. I worked for a Shakespeare Festival at TCU. I worked a couple of retail jobs, and it took about a year, but I got an offer as an instructional assistant professor at Texas A&M University, and I started teaching completely actually outside of my specific focus. I started teaching theater history and script analysis, and then just sort of designing for the department as needed. And from there, I moved into a full-time faculty and actually teaching more in my area as well. But that was sort of years down the road.
Yeah. So, what was the thing, I guess, that made you decide on design, and then I guess focused on, you're more focused on costume and set design, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess, how did you fall into that specific area?
So, well, I've always loved art. I've always loved fashion and, architecture and like interior design, things that I didn't really think about when I went to college and was like, I'm going to do theater. I just wanted to act and be on stage and be pretty and sing songs. But then as I learned more about everything that actually went into every production, I finally had the opportunity to see that like you can take fashion and history and art and all of these other things that I was also interested in and apply them to the theater through design. So in my undergraduate program, everybody had to do an internship between your junior and senior year in order to graduate. So that's why I went to the Ohio Light Opera, and I went as a stitcher in their costume shop. I was not an opera singer, and I was not even going to try. So I just went, and I was like, I can sew straight lines. And they were generous enough to hire me. And working very closely with the costume designers there all summer, I suddenly was like, this is amazing. Like seeing the designs that they did and all of the drawings they did, and, interacting with the singers to help create these characters and put them on stage and bring this production to life. Suddenly I saw this whole new side of theater that I didn't really know was a thing that I could actually do. And so when I came back my senior year of undergrad, I already had fallen into directing and really liked being in charge. But then I saw that like I could still sort of be in charge of things in a different way through design and bring in a little bit more of like my artistic flair. So I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with costume design. And in graduate school, we had to take all of the design areas as a class. So when it came time for scenic design, I was like, oh, this is really fun too. And I'm actually really good at this. So I kind of just picked those two and ran with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would 100% watch like an HGTV show where you design houses and stuff. That'd be amazing.
Right? That would be so fun. Like, yes, let's let a bunch of theater designers design all of these houses.
Yeah. It'll be very, very functional. Just don't like put anything on the walls.
Right, exactly. The wall might fall over, but it's going to look fabulous.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, a little bit more about your time at A&M and what it was like being a professor. Yeah, for any of us who are thinking about doing education, like in the future.
Yeah, I loved being a professor. Yeah, it was really, I think, really fulfilling to meet so many different people and young people, right, who were at a point in their lives where I had also been, right, coming to the big university and saying like, I think I want to do theater, but I'm not really sure, like, can I even actually make a living out of this or a career, or what other ways do people use theater that's not just go be an actor in Broadway, on Broadway, right? Because we're not all going to do that, and that's fine. but it was just really fun to sort of help everybody work through that process and see these are all the different avenues that theater has to offer, and you can sort of create your own way and your own path with those things and figure out what it is that you want to do and what you're passionate about in theater. Yeah, and I mean, you know, I, like I said, I've always had lots of different interests in like history and design and all kinds of things. And so I got to teach a lot of the things that I found interesting, and share that excitement with other students. I actually had a lot of fun teaching my theater history class, and several of the students from that class ended up coming into the theater department and being like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And, you know, and they're still doing theater today. So it was really rewarding to sort of pass that on. Yeah. I guess.
Do you have any, because the theater history classes are large classes at A&M. Do you have any, I guess, funny stories or anything about any non-majors or?
I do. So I had one really large class. There was almost 300 people in there, and we were talking about costume design one day and how it's more than just like dressing people, you know, which is the thing that my parents would often say to me when I was like, I'm going to be a costume designer. And they're like, you're going to put clothes on people? Like, so I was trying to talk about how there's more to it than just putting clothes on people. And we were sort of going around the room talking about how the things we wear say things about us. And one of my students stood up and showed everybody his tennis shoes, and they were like crazy bright neon colors and rainbow, and I mean just outrageous. And so we were saying, like, you know, what could it mean if he chooses to wear tennis shoes like that? And I said, you know, maybe he loves attention, or maybe he's very outgoing and flamboyant. And he's like, I'm actually really shy, and like I don't like people to notice me. Well, okay, I completely misread that situation. So then fast forward 3 years, and I have had my first child, and we are doing baby swim lessons. And we get in the pool, and our instructor gets in, and he turns around and he looks at me and he's like, you told me that I was flamboyant, even though I'm really shy. And it was this same kid with this like bright colored tennis shoes from 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm so glad you remember that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. It's a surprisingly small world, especially within the theater.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So now that you are a freelancer, what is that like? How is it finding jobs and using those connections that you have? And then when you're actually in the theater, I guess, what is it like adapting to the different stages and different companies, things like that?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah. I would say that 100% I have gotten every freelance job that I have done through connections that I have made. So without those connections, I wouldn't have any of those jobs. And then, you know, and it all started with like one specific theater in Houston where the technical director at the time was someone that I worked with 10 years ago at an opera in Ohio. And so we made that connection there, and I started designing for them. And then through them, I met other people, and just sort of it branched out that way. So it's like that one tiny seed, you know, grew all of my design work now. And so I think those relationships have been like absolutely instrumental in me working freelance and designing continually. And as far as adapting, you know, to different environments and different theaters, I think it's really fun. It's really interesting to see like what the different dynamic is in each different place. And the part of me that is still a professor and continues to love learning really likes to take the opportunity to learn from the different people that I'm working with, and, you know, and the ways that they do things, or just the different things that they see that maybe I didn't. So I always try to sort of go in and kind of feel out the environment first, especially like in the shops, you know, the people, because when you're coming in as a guest, all of those people work together all the time, every day. You know, they are each other's constant, and you are not. So I kind of just like to feel it out and see what everybody's like, and kind of what the shop rules are, because everybody has sort of a different set of rules and standards that they operate to on a daily basis. And then I want to make sure that, you know, I'm still me, but I want to fit into their environment in a way that's not disruptive, because I need them to be able to work productively and enjoy what they're doing, even though I'm there. So, and I would say, you know, it has been an overwhelmingly positive experience. There's always those moments where you're like, this kind of sucks right now, but overall, it's always a good time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you had those like really great experiences there. Yeah. So before we wrap up, Kristina, I've been asking everybody this question, but I'm going to kind of like add on to this for you. So the base question is, if you could go back to your high school self and give her one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Oh, God.
And then I also want to add another layer to it. As a person who has taught at a university, what advice would you give somebody who is coming into the school? And like, what's that one thing that you're like looking for in prospective students that you may not necessarily always get?
Okay.
Yeah.
Whew, this is a hard one.
I know.
Okay. To my high school self, I would probably say, chill out. Like, just stop stressing and stop worrying and just like chill out. Everything is going to be okay. You know? Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time sort of stressing about what choices do I make and how does this affect my whole life, and, you know, what will everybody think if I do this thing versus that thing, and if I do the wrong thing, it's all gonna, you know, go downhill from here. And that's not true. It's not true. And like, yes, every decision, of course, affects your life in one way or another, but like, I don't think there's like a right choice and a wrong choice in terms of where you go with your life and your career. I think you make choices and then you make choices off of that choice. Yeah. And so I would just be like, chill out, just enjoy things, and it's all going to be okay. And I think for a prospective student coming in, one of the things that I think personally I'm looking for is someone who is motivated and I think like looking for like just somebody who's motivated, and thirsty sounds really cliche, but let's go with that, right? Okay, motivated and thirsty. I want someone who wants to be there and who wants to learn and who wants, like, tell me everything that you can. Just I want to know all of it. And someone who's really going to sort of help create their own path, you know, as opposed to just sort of sitting there and saying like, well, my counselor said I need this and this and this. You know, I want to know what it is that excites you, and then I want to see that you have the drive to get there and to do those things. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for in a prospective student. And as far as what I think they should be looking for coming in or when they're choosing university, you know, like I said, I got really lucky in the universities that I chose and the choices that I made, but I wouldn't say that I chose wisely. I think I was just very lucky. So I would say to other students, you know, you want to make sure that when you're looking at a university, they offer exactly what it is that you want. You know, do your research, find out who works there, find out, you know, what their education was and what contacts they have that they can then pass on to you so that you can start building your connection network. And if the connections that you want, that you think are going to help you get to where you need to go aren't there, then look at a different school. You know, you have the opportunity to sort of create your own path by making the choices who you're going to surround yourself with. So really figure out who those people are before you make the choice to spend the next 4 years with them.
Yeah. That's really great advice, because ultimately, like, you're paying to be there. Like,
Yes.
don't be pushed around and bullied by like your academic advisors. Like, know what you want, have that hunger and thirst for knowledge that is motivating you throughout those years in college, and push yourself to get the career path that you want, not what they have laid out for you, because it's not always going to be great. Most academic advisors, especially like within the arts, don't know anything about the arts. And so you gotta kind of have to know. And when in doubt, go find a professor and go to their office hours and ask them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think, anybody who goes into education does it because they want to help you, right? They're there to help you and there to teach you, not just to be like, you failed this paper. So, find a professor and just tell them, like, this is what I want. These are my goals, and they will help you figure out how to achieve those.
Yeah. It's just like when you're in the audition room, like the director wants you to be the one that they cast. They want their job to be done and like make it easy for them. Professors are the same. Like, they want to help you out. They want to make sure that you get what you're paying for. That's really good advice. I love that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on our show here.
Of course.
It was really great. It's always great catching up. Viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please send us an email. We are happy to help. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and have a wonderful day.